All right. Hey, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are at. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. No, wait. This. Can I do it? Can I do it? This amplifier right here. Now, for all intents and purposes, that amp style is my bread and butter. It's my main sort of sound. It's a Suhr SL68. So basically a plexi, a Marshall plexi style amplifier, made to the spec of Eddie Van Halen's famous Marshall plexi. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about this amp and just sort of my journey in finding my sound, and more specifically channeling that sound, finding the right way to channel that sound through this amplifier. That's my first time doing the whole YouTuber point thing, so cut me some slack. Anyway, so I first bought this amp, oh gosh, I don't know, it must have been maybe 6 years ago or so. And I was younger then, and I paid full price for it, which was an obscene amount of money, especially back then for me. Shipped and everything. I did reach a point where, I got pickier and I realized that it just wasn't quite achieving what I had in my head. Now, eventually, I realized that that was due to a few key factors, and I wanted to share those with you, just in case you're looking at this amp, still over there, or a similar type of amp, you're trying to choose something, or just trying to figure out how to get the best out of what you already own. So, factor number one, and I think this is just kind of an overall underrated factor with guitar players, speakers and speaker cabinet, okay? Speakers are so much of your sound, right? If we were assigning arbitrary percentages, I would say it's like maybe even like up to 70% of the sound of your signal chain, because the speaker is what's translating the electrical signal, so to speak. And I'm not an electrical engineer or amp tech, so forgive me, but it's translating the electricity into sound waves. It is a huge step in actually hearing your guitar. And speakers are not designed, guitar speakers aren't designed to be hi-fi, right? They're not designed to replicate that electrical signal into a sound wave at a one-to-one sort of representation. They have coloration. They have their own characteristics. So that leaves a lot of room for a wide variety of differences, different traits between different speakers. So getting back to my original point here, I never really matched the correct speakers in the correct configuration for the sound that I enjoyed. Now, the sound that I enjoy the most often is a classic rock sort of sound, akin to, say, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, these styles of tone. And guess what? None of those styles of tone used, modern guitar speakers, V30s, etc., things like that. They used some sort of greenback, some sort of Celestion greenback, for the most part. So, it took me a really long time to get around to it, but I finally started matching the correct style of speakers to my amplifiers, and it made the world, a world of difference, I should say. Just a huge difference. At first I got some regular Chinese Celestion greenbacks, awesome by the way, perfectly good. Then I moved on to a brand called Scumbag, where this guy recreates the vintage sort of designs of Celestion speakers. And I ended up getting a few different Scumbags, and I still have one of their BM75s, but for a while there I had basically their equivalent of a Celestion Blackback, and that was awesome. I would buy that speaker again in a heartbeat. But I eventually landed on some actual Celestion vintage Blackbacks, and that's in this cabinet here, this 412. That's actually an original 1979. That's the year, not the model. Marshall cabinet, and like I said, it came with the original blackbacks. So yeah, they're great. They're awesome. I paid a lot of money for that too. Do I regret it? Not at all, because again, the speaker is so much of the sound of your guitar signal. Now, in that realm, number 2 would be having the correct speaker cabinet. So I used 112s and 212s for the longest time, and those are awesome. They just have their own sonic sort of traits because of the resonance of that box, right? A 112 is a smaller box, and 212 is a slightly bigger box. So it's absolutely true that the resonant characteristics of those sizes play a huge part in your recording. So I just wasn't getting what I wanted out of 112s or 212s for my definitive classic rock sort of sound. And eventually I realized that I needed a 412. Now I had a 412 earlier on. I sold it because I couldn't be bothered to move it around. But again, I finally realized that, hey, just the size of that is a huge part of the depth and the low end you get, you know, under mics. So between the speakers and the speaker cabinet itself, those are 2 huge components in getting the sound that's in your head. And the sound in my head was generally classic sort of vintage Celestions and a 412. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention, and this was a huge part of getting the sound I wanted out of this amplifier, right here still, was the fact that the original generation of Suhr SL series amplifiers didn't have what's called a bright cap. Now, I'm not going to explain everything about what a bright cap is. That's out of the scope of this video. But the general idea is it adds a sort of brightness, a sort of aggressiveness to the amplifier, and it is what's usually in the classic layout of a vintage like Marshall Plexi. They can have different values across the years, or depending on whatever Marshall had in the factory that day, but they generally had bright caps in them. Now, Suhr decided not to add a bright cap into this amp for a few reasons. Mostly to make it more versatile at lower volumes and cleaner tones, but I was just not getting the aggressiveness that I expected out of this amplifier and that I expected out of this style of amp. You know, that sort of kerrang, that sort of high mids sound. I just wasn't getting it. So eventually it dawned on me, wow, this amp doesn't have a bright cap in it. And I realized that I needed one, or at least I needed to try it out and see if it would make a huge difference. And guess what it did? Even at high volumes, even at full volume on the volume knob, which is, in theory, it shouldn't matter that much, but I tested it out, it does. So I actually ended up putting a 3-way switch on this amplifier. Okay, so it toggles between 3 different settings. One is just the stock no bright cap setting that the amp would have. Okay, the second, and you'll have to excuse me, again, I'm not an amp tech, so I don't remember all the units for the values, but the second setting is like 0.33 something something, a 0.33 insert unit here, capacitor, which sounds great, and then I also added a 0.47. So again, we got stock, 0.33, and 0.47. And I love all the different settings. Even the stock one, again, without the bright cap, is a cool sound too. But I have it switched to what I believe is the 0.47 right now. And thank heavens, there is the aggressive high end that I was looking for. So just to review, those 3 things were, you know, get the right speakers for you, whatever that happens to be. get the right cabinet. Makes a huge difference on the response and low end feel of your recording. And if you're looking at a Suhr SL68, if you're looking at the first generation, understand the fact that it does not have a bright cap, and that might affect what you want to do with it. I think they released a second generation recently that has a couple switchable features, including a few different bright cap settings. Okay. Now, let's hear this amp a little more. I'm really happy with where it's at right now. At some point in the future, maybe I'll do a video showing off like the settings I'm using on the amp itself, the mic setup, maybe the settings on my recording software. Maybe one day. I'm always tinkering with stuff. I'm always changing it myself. So. This amp is really great for clean sounds as well, so I'm going to roll back my guitar volume and switch to neck and middle position. Here's middle and bridge. Anyway, that's just a quick overview of the Suhr SL68 amplifier in terms of my experience with it and what I've done to kind of coax out the best sound for me. All right, see you around.